Created by the distinguished Dr. Randall Maxey, and he is Chief Medical Officer of Advanced Community Medical Care Corporation and co-founder of the Black Health Trust. Dr. Maxey will introduce his wonderful co-moderator and guest today. So what's our purpose? The mission of the Black Health Trust is to provide credible insights from our community of health experts to best serve our communities of color with a coalition of leading and longstanding Black medical professionals across a diverse spectrum of disciplines, and to offer unvarnished opinions and insights into our physical and mental health during these challenging times. So before we go on, I want to get a few housekeeping items out of the way and let you know that this program is being recorded live on different public platforms such as Facebook Live and YouTube. Your participation on the call is completely voluntary, as you know. And if you choose to stay on this call and prefer not to have your image and likeness displayed, there are visual and audio settings on your personal device you can use to block your picture and mute your voice. So all participants will be muted upon entry into the room by our Zoom technician. And we ask that you remain muted until the host or moderator asks you to contribute in order to minimize the distraction of background noise so that we can give 100% attention to our amazing speakers today. So check and just make sure that your device is on mute, even though we're gonna mute you until you're called to speak to. Room, if you have questions, you can enter them into the chat room, but please limit your questions to 2 questions per topic being addressed. And then please also do not use the forum to advertise or promote your products. Understand there may not always be sufficient time to get to all the questions during the call, but we'll do our best. So thank you again for your patience on that. The disclaimer here is that you need to seek your own medical or legal professional advice for situations pertaining to your needs. The information communicated on this call is not deemed to be medical or legal advice. So you should always consult your own professionals with regards to your own needs. So we need you. Black Health Trust needs your support, your time, your monetary support to continue bringing our community outstanding program, critical and timely information. Please visit the website to learn more about our programming, how you can get involved, how you can donate. And again, blackhealthtrust.org. And we accept different forms of payment, so that shouldn't be an option. Thank you so much in advance for your contributions. We will have a member of our Black Health Trust Executive Board talk more about supporting the program later. And so stay tuned for that. And I want to thank the event, our production and Zoom technician, and all the people behind the scenes for their time and efforts that make this program possible. Last, I want to give a big welcome to all of our distinguished physicians and special guests. We thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your valuable time, information, and educated insights with us. This is critical to present and future well-being as a people. Knowledge is power. Welcome again, everyone, to the Black Health Trust Weekly Program. This is our community, and this is our time to improve our health. Grab your coffee, tea, get comfortable, lean in. And Dr. Maxey, I invite you.
Fax me a cup of that tea right quick. I can use it. Good morning, everyone. This is our weekly Sunday morning program where we bring you credible information regarding health disparities as well as COVID-19. We're very concerned that often in the news media and on the internet, there's so much information misdirecting you in regards to your safety. The first thing I'll say is that this health crisis is very real. But even before the crisis of the pandemic, we already had an epidemic of abnormal health, unacceptable health, poor health access, and poor outcomes within communities of color. And then you added this pandemic on top of it. And the things that we know is not just physical health, but it includes medical health, social health, mental health, spiritual health, and we're all challenged. In a normal way, I'm going to deviate from our normal opening protocol. One of our main speakers for today is in flight from the East Coast because his oldest daughter had a cardiac arrest last evening and is in renal failure and on dialysis at a hospital here in the Southern California area. And despite the travel bans, this gentleman is coming to see his daughter. In my own family, I have a young relative who was admitted to an emergency room with issues around harming herself. And there are others I know that have illnesses or deaths within their family. It's been my life that in times of challenge, when you're up against giants, you go back to your faith for strength. And I'm going to offer a brief prayer before we start our normal meeting. Most Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace and mercy to let us gather today to commune in the gathering of knowledge that will help our communities, of information. We thank you, Lord, for the professionals that have volunteered their time to give us this key information. We ask that it be received in the spirit in which it is given. We ask you to protect all of us and the families that we represent and the friendships that we represent. We ask this in the mighty name of Christ. Amen. I'm getting a text from one of our speakers. Let me just see if somebody can call Dr. Walsh for me into, if you do that. And let's go to the first slides. Simon, I want to introduce my intellectual, brilliant co-moderator, who is Dr. Barbara Neighbor Stevens. And I always joke that I met her when she was 15 years old, which is true. I just won't tell you how many years ago that was. But she is an MD. She also holds a Master of Business Administration. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And she has had extensive experience in the healthcare field. She functions as an executive with a major healthcare company in Nashville, Tennessee. She has been the director of pediatric education at Meharry University. She attended school at both Tufts New England Medical Center as well as Harvard University. She is a well-recognized medical expert and executive. And I welcome her as my co-moderator and partner in this effort. And I'd like to introduce her to introduce some of our speakers. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back to our normal opening with the statistics that we're presented with. Today, as of 12 midnight, there are 11,843,493 cases of COVID in the United States. And we know that when we did this last week, there were only 10 million. The number of deaths that has occurred are 253,600,000 in the United States. In terms of new cases, over the past 7 days, we know that has been 49.8 out of 100,000. And I actually saw some numbers last night that said it's as high as 76 per 100,000 in some areas. So we have a major crisis. Now, there are those who would minimize these numbers. They would say that it's not a high percentage, but guess who the high percentage is? It's in communities of color. And what today's program is going to discuss some of the important issues about survival. We want to make it not only through these holidays, but we want to make it in life in general. So there are a lot of moving parts to this. Our theme last week was the best defense is a good offense. And we want to continue that in learning how to survive. I'm wondering if we were able to get Dr. Walks on the phone. He can speak to his phone. Into?
Hi, I was able to get Dr. Walks. He signed on, as well as Francis Tillery.
They're on?
Yes, they're both on.
Okay.
As well as Dr. Ajay Ananda.
Okay.
I also spoke to the Reverend. You saw our text correspondence, yeah?
No, that's okay. We'll go forward with the
Yeah,
program.
he asked what
That's
time.
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Dr. Barbara Neighbor-Stevens, would you read the bio of Dr. Walks for me, please? Dr. Walks has been a long-term friend and associate of mine in the National Medical Association. And if she can simply introduce him, I'd love to have his words for a few moments.
Yes, it is my pleasure to present Dr. Walks this afternoon. Dr. Walks is the CEO of Integrated Health Resources, which is a behavioral health services company. For those who don't know what a behavioral health services company is, it's a company that manages mental health issues. Dr. Walks and Associates is also serves as a consultant. He has a past connection as mental health commissioner for the County of Los Angeles and the chief health officer for Washington, D.C., as well as the director of the D.C. Department of Health. He has been on the faculty of multiple organizations, and notably after the September 11th attacks, he served on the national board of the American Red Cross to oversee health recovery efforts for those impacted by the events at the Pentagon and the Twin Towers. It is with great pleasure that I bring Dr. Walks to us this afternoon, and the floor is now yours. Dr. Walks.
Okay, how about that? Can you hear me well?
Yes, we see you and hear you.
Okay, I am so sorry. I respect Dr. Maxey way too much to cause this much trouble getting into a meeting. I have had some challenges this morning, but first of all, thank you all for having me. I think this is again another very important work that Dr. Maxey spearheads, and I'm honored to be a part of it. As a psychiatrist, Dr. Maxey and I had some conversation about how I may be able to contribute today. And I wanted to contribute looking at the considerations and consequences to mental health in this area, this time of COVID, of racism, of general health disparities. So let me talk about it this way. We made it through 2019. Not without some challenges, right? We had inequities in health in 2019. We had inequities in resources. We dealt with racism. We had stress. But we had some different kinds of outlets in 2019. We were able to go to movies. We were able to go to church. We were able to get to pastoral counseling. We were able to talk to family. And then 2020 hit, and suddenly bad news became more prominent. We began to see some more clear lines between the haves and the have-nots. A lot of things around us began to be more problems. We had fires in the West, hurricanes in the South, turmoil in DC, COVID everywhere, death 24/7 on our TVs. We kept hearing about who was dying. I used to joke around a lot with one of my favorite quotes from a movie called Meet the Browns, where Mr. Browns would say, "There's people dying that ain't never died before." And it was funny back then. And now when I think about it, it's not so funny because we're dying from reasons that we've never died from before. Our world is unsettled. And that's the word that I use when something is completely unfamiliar and at the same time uncomfortable. I had an experience with a friend of mine who had a very small private airplane. So I'm up in his airplane and he says, "Hey, you want to take the controls for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." So I took the controls and he said, "Remember, there's no ground." And that's obvious, you're in an airplane. But if you ever take the controls of an airplane, you realize what "there's no ground" means. It's very unsettling because there's nothing supporting you. And that occurred to me as I was thinking about, why does it feel so weird right now? Why does it feel so different? And what's it like when we keep watching people that look like us dying more from COVID-19 and having our country and our world be unsettled? One of the things that makes it so unsettled is that the advice keeps changing. And so we have uncertainty on top of the unfamiliarity of what's going on. And then this other thing is that people are telling us, "Well, don't worry, it's okay." But, you know, we don't all have what you have. We can't get what you have. We had a very prominent person in our country get COVID-19, wound up in a helicopter coming to his house, taking him to a hospital with a private wing and a bunch of doctors. Most of us don't have access to that. So in the middle of all of this uncertainty and death, we had something called a lockdown, where all of a sudden things that matter to us were no longer available. There's no private time when you're locked in the house and you've got young children and you're the parent and you're the school teacher. There's no personal space. But if you're an essential worker, you're out there working. You've lost things that matter. You've lost hugs, you've lost touch, and you've lost church. And I've talked to people who are very disoriented because church was such an important part of what they did. And they just can't connect with the being online for church.
Hey.
So where do we help? Where do we find help? Where's our break? It used to be we turn the TV off and
All right,
folks
I'll
would
do
go,
all of them.
I'm sorry?
Okay, bye.
There were some interference.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're on. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay. I was saying that one of the challenges is, where do we get help now that church is gone, now that the TV is 24/7 COVID-19? We're looking at an increase in drug use, an increase in alcohol abuse, an increase in spousal abuse, an increase in child abuse, and an increase in us feeling like no one really cares about us as individuals. Those are real challenges. So what do we need to understand about the world we're living in right now? First of all, I think we need to understand that it's the world, it's not you. One of those old relationship lines, people would say, "Well, it's not me, it's you." Or "It's not me, it's not you." Well, right now, it's the world that is very, very different. And so where do we go for help? Or where do we go for escape? I don't know where we go. we can't turn the TV off and go to social media, because now social media is all COVID-19 and politics and bad news. I was in an airplane at 35,000 feet, no social media, no television, and my telephone made a loud noise. I was flying over the state of Colorado, and the state of Colorado was sending me an alert about deadly COVID-19, even at 35,000 feet. So it's a real challenge to find some escape from what's going on. But I have a plan. I do know what we can do. And what we can do is remember that there's another song, and it goes, hold on, help is on the way. I believe God has a plan. I believe God is listening. And I believe there are things we can do. I believe there are things we can start or things we can join. And so let me just share briefly what I mean by that. My church is virtual. We're online like many other churches. We have a men's institute where we have men meet every Saturday morning from 8 to 9:30. And it's a place that I've never seen. I've been going to church my whole life. And it's a place where men can, as one of our brothers says, we can take off our armor and get our wounds salved. We can talk, we can cry, we can uplift each other, we can pray with and pray for each other. And so you can find a place where you can get help and you can connect, even if you can't reach out and physically touch folks. Our group was very engaged with the election. We found an organization that was sending postcards and making phone calls to some of the swing states. And we did a lot of work with postcards in Georgia, even though we couldn't leave the state of Maryland at the time. I'm on the board of an organization that's working with Amazon and with an organization called DC Appleseed to raise money and do direct community grants to folks who have lost income, who have lost resources during this time. And maybe the most important thing that I can share with you right now is, how do we rebuild our relationships with each other? How do we connect with other people? We keep hearing about all of these conversations we need to have about race and about poverty and about inequities and all of that. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a parking lot getting out of my car, and a guy pulled up a couple of spaces over on a beautiful motorcycle, beautiful Harley Davidson, looked like he had just polished it. I got out of the car and I looked over and I said, man, that's a nice bike. And he just kind of looked back at me, nodded his head, went in the store. I went in the store. As I came back out, he came back out and he said to me, oh, thanks for what you said earlier. And I said, oh man, I was just admiring your bike. This guy didn't look anything like me. He had a long white beard and looked like he probably voted for somebody I didn't vote for. But we struck up a conversation about a motorcycle. And I figure if two guys can't talk about a motorcycle, people can't talk about anything. But we had a great conversation. I enjoyed talking with him. And so my advice is, start with the easy conversations. Start with the things that are obvious and non-controversial. Give someone an opportunity to smile at you, and you smile back at them before we dig into all the things that are more difficult. I believe that we can change. I believe that our culture can change. Some of the things we fight about now, we don't have to fight about. I'm going to close with this. I'm not a young person. I remember when cars didn't all have seatbelts. And I remember all of the angst about, you can't tell me I got to put a seatbelt on in my car. It's my business. Well, the reason we wanted everyone to wear seatbelts was because even if you're in the car by yourself, if you get hurt, it impacts a lot of people around you. It impacts the hospitals. And God forbid someone is in the car with you and you become a projectile moving through the car in an accident. Our entire culture changed. We have laws that mandate that people wear seatbelts. And guess what? We're all okay with that. So we can think about seatbelts and think about masks and think about culture change in our country and think about things that we learn to do so that we can protect ourselves and so we can protect each other. So yes, our world is unsettled. Yes, we're under a lot of stress. We can still pray. We can still connect. We can still either start something or join something. And I'd like to stop right there. Dr. Maxey, thank you again for inviting me.
Well, thank you very, very much, Dr. Walk, for being here and coming all the way across the country. I know you have a lot of things on your plate today. Are there any questions in the chat box, Michelle?
No, there are no questions. I think that was a lot of good insight to receive. And
Okay.
so I think
I
we're all
have
in listen mode.
Dr. Walks,
Sir.
what are some of the mental health survival tips you might have for our listening audience? You know, going through that, this is a time of family gathering with Thanksgiving coming and Christmas coming and the holidays of other faiths all coming through here. I called it a gauntlet.
Right.
Issues. What are some of the survival tips that you might think of to help people get through this, especially that of loneliness and being away from one's loved ones?
Dr. Maxey, I think that is so important. My first bit of advice is think about what matters the most to you. When we begin to think about what matters the most to us, it helps us set priorities. And priorities are very useful as we're trying to behave in a way that makes sense and in a way that is in line with our priorities. So yes, what's important? Family gatherings are important. Family safety is important. Maybe family safety is a little bit more important than family gatherings. So let's put that at the top of the list and let's see, how do we protect each other? Maybe we can, in fact, gather, and maybe we can gather differently than we've gathered before. Maybe we can have a bigger family gathering because everybody can't come together. So maybe everybody is on Zoom. Everybody is on WebEx. Everybody is on Teams. Everybody is on some sort of a platform that allows our gathering to be different and allows our gathering to be bigger. So I think that thinking creatively about what we can do can sometimes help us tolerate some of the things that we can't do. So the second thing that I would recommend is don't be by yourself. Just because you may be alone physically doesn't mean you have to be by yourself. Are there friends that you talk to regularly? Can you get on the phone with people? Are there folks that you haven't been able to get together with and you haven't talked to in a little while? This is a good time to take out the phone book. Well, who has a phone book anymore? But to look through your address book in your phone and connect with someone. And then the last thing I'll say, and maybe one of the most important things, is be honest about how you feel. Be honest about the fact that you do feel lonely, about the fact that you do feel depressed, and don't be afraid to ask for help with that. People tell me, well, I've got a friend I talk to. Well, I say, you know what? I'm a kind of a smart person and I can figure things out. But if there's something wrong with my car, I try to get it to an expert. If I've got a legal problem, I try to get to a lawyer. And so there are people whose job it is to use their expertise to help you deal with things like stress, things like loneliness, things like grief. A lot of us are losing people right now. And this is a time when we may need some help. So absolutely, be creative in terms of what you can do. Reach out for help, ask for help when you feel unsettled or you feel any sort of out of sorts kind of a way. And then most importantly, be creative. Be creative about what we can do during this time and put your heads together. Talk to someone else in your family. Hey, what are you thinking? What do you think we can do? Talk to a friend. What are you thinking? What do you think we can do? This is a time for us to be together differently, for us to be together creatively.
There are two questions I'm going to ask Dr. Neighbor to, if she has any questions, but I'm going to ask you two that you stimulated in my mind. One, it seems like our country, or a sizable percentage of it, does not think that life is more important than economics. That's one question. But the other is I take care of a lot of rather prominent pastors and physicians. And many times I have recommended that they need mental health counseling. And immediately, no matter how educated they are, they come back with, well, I'm not crazy. I don't need help. That would ruin my reputation. If that gets out that I had to see a mental health professional, I would go down the tubes. How would you suggest that as a physician or a health professional, I could handle that? And I know on the line is Dr. Wendy Talley, who is a mental health specialist that I referred many people to. But I'm concerned that, in fact, as a doctor, who do I go to if I've got mental health? I'm not crazy.
Well, Dr. Maxey, you can always call me. I always have time for you. Let me say this seriously. There are two little things that I want to say about that question. It's a very important question, not just for the doctors and the pastors, but for many folks in a lot of different kinds of communities, particularly in the African American community. We are not going to see a shrink. That is not something that we do. We don't even talk about that in our families and in our communities. I remember a pastor coming to see me, an older gentleman. I was much younger, Pentecostal minister, fire and brimstone kind of guy. He came in, he was struggling because he was coming to see a psychiatrist. And then he looked at me and he said, let me tell you something. He said, God doesn't waste anything. So if God made psychiatrists, there must be a use for you. And my response to him was, I'll take it. I'll take it, Pastor, because I believe that God puts things for us in places that may be unfamiliar, and sometimes we have to be creative. Second thing I'll say real quick is this. I was part of a group of the International Delegation of Psychiatric Leaders was the official term for it. We went to the Vatican for a meeting with the Pope. To skip to the end of the story, the purpose of it was to get the Pope to say, and he did, he issued something called a papal edict to all the billion Catholics around the world that basically said, from the Pope to you, it's okay to go see your shrink. And I think it's important for people to stand up and say that this is another resource that is available to us, like all the other resources, like the antibiotics that are out there, like physical therapy that is out there. Mental health resources are there. So if you want to take the spiritual take from the pastor I talked to, or from the Pope issuing a papal edict, get with the times. Those days of mental health being something that we are not supposed to deal with, those days are behind us. Please, let's everyone remember that we are doing more harm than good when we don't help others who may need some help.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Dr. Neighbor?
Thank you so much, Dr. Walks. I have just been clinging to every word you said, but I want to ask you to push a little further in what we can do within our families to, whether they're in our house or we are communicating through Zoom or whatever. What tips would you give families on recognizing when there is a family member that's maybe getting in trouble? Because one of the things we certainly know that happens during the holiday season is that there's always a peak in severe depression and suicide attempts. And so we would certainly hope that families could be educated as to what signs to look for and maybe head things off before they get to such a critical point.
You know, that is such an important thing for us to, as you said, to just dig a little bit deeper into. When someone comes into my office, some of the questions I ask them have to do with difference. What's different about things? How's your appetite? Has it increased? Has it decreased? What's your sleep like? Has it increased? Has it decreased? One of the differences between mental health folks and other parts of healthcare is that we don't necessarily have to have a bunch of fancy tools. We don't have to have a whole bunch of x-ray machines and blood pressure cuffs and everything else to get good information to help us move forward. And I would encourage family members to look at each other, see what's going on with people who are, even if you're doing it over Zoom. Wait, what happened to Uncle Jimmy's smile? What happened to Aunt Susie's jokes that she always told? What's different about this person in my family? How come every time I get up, John's already up? How come, these are the kinds of things that we can look for, that we can identify when people are different, because they're signs of people being unsettled, of people being different. Also, what do you mean? Come on, I was just joking. Sometimes people become irritable. They can't take a joke anymore. Nothing is funny. Whatever you're saying is not funny. Everything is so serious. People are stressed. And so when I'm talking with folks about how they can work better in their family as a resource, sometimes they can be a lay diagnostician. They can begin thinking about the same things that mental health professionals think about, thinking about what's different, what subtle changes have been there over time. Some people who never cry, and suddenly, is this something bad? Well, it's a sad movie, but wait a minute. He has never cried in a movie before. What's going on? Changes. That would be the one word I would use when I'm talking to family members about how do you pick up on things that may be going on. And then the last thing I'll say, first of all, I have a real problem with short answers, and I apologize for that. But the one thing I would say is, when you are asking questions and when you're getting information, be receptive and be open. That's not a time to make a joke. That's not a time to be very serious and very paranoid. Be kind of loose about it. Allow a safe space for your family member to share whatever may be going on with them, and just take it. Just listen. Don't be too quick to give advice. A lot of times your quick advice will cut off some additional sharing that family member has to do. Okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you have time to stick around, I'm sure we'll have other questions that'll come up. But otherwise, make sure you call me before you leave town, sir. Thank you.
I will call you, Dr. Maxey, and thank you for understanding. I do have some pressing family stuff that I need to deal with. I'm honored to be invited. I'm happy to come back anytime. And Dr. Maxey, if there are any other questions that you want to send to me later and ask me to address, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And say hello to Mom. Thank you.
Yes, I will, sir. And a blessed and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Walks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Dr. Neighbor?
Yes, I am here, and we are ready to move on with our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Frances Tillery, and Ms. Tillery has been invited because of her expertise in the realm of nutrition. I mentioned to Dr. Maxey that I kind of woke up with the thought the other morning that here we are going in. Well, first of all, last week we had a fantastic session. I hope most of you that are on today were with us last week, because we had a fantastic session last week talking about lifestyle changes and diabetes and a lot of things that can lead to a better quality of life. And I was thinking, we're going into the holidays, and traditional holiday meals and celebrations are not the healthiest. And we certainly want to support in every way we can our goals of helping our community to improve their health. So Dr. Maxey immediately thought of Ms. Tillery. And after reading her bio, I can see why he would think of her. She's eminently trained and has had years in the field of nutrition in the healthcare setting. But I think what I want to leave with you as the end of this bio is something from her own words, because it really resonated with me. She said, through my own personal experiences, I seek to engage, educate, and encourage as I have learned to share with others healthy lifestyle awareness messages and healthy living tips and resources of the world I've seen. She is speaking from her heart. And when you speak from your heart, the message rings true. Without further ado, I would like to bring forward Ms. Frances Tillery.
Okay. Let me see a share screen. Oh, it says producing sharing. Okay. Desktop. Am I on?
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone.
Do you want us to do your slides for you?
No, I have the slides.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just do the slides. I have my slides. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This talk is going to be on the concerns regarding COVID-19, the proper nutrition and healthy lifestyle. When we really talk about proper food safety during this time, we're really talking about what we could really do to stay safe. So one of the first things we should always remember we want to make sure that we implement while preparing all of our foods, especially during Thanksgiving and all of the holiday season. It's very important that you want to wash your hands with soap and water for a minimum of about 20 seconds. It used to be 15, but you really want to look at for about 20 seconds. You want to make sure that you wash the surfaces and utensils with hot soapy water after eating all of your utensils, or use your hand sanitizers with about 60% alcohol. You want to wash your hands when touching your face, when you're coughing, you're sneezing, blowing your nose, or using the bathroom. Sometimes these are things that we may forget to do when we're often at home. It's when we're in a home setting, it's not uncommon that we may touch our hands or cough or sneeze, and then we continue to go on. But especially during this time of COVID, we need to really take a lot more precaution in a lot of our behaviors. It's important when we actually look at the recommended population at the increased risk for these complications. Older adults and individuals with serious chronic medical conditions. These are the people such as those who have obesity. When I was looking at this, it said in February of 2020, 42.4% of Americans were reported by CDC that have obesity. I mean, these are just really serious high numbers. When we look at diabetes, in 2018, 34.2 million Americans are reported by CDC to have diabetes. When we look at heart disease, we have 610 million people of Americans who die each year reported by CDC. This is almost like 1 in 4. Then we look at lung disease. Now here's my area that I'm now specializing in, kidney disease. Over 40 million people are living with kidney disease, and this is reported by the National Kidney Foundation. And that number is continuing to grow. So it's so important that we need to take precaution to protect their health. I also, and as I go a little bit on and later and talk about food to eat, it's very important because this holiday season, a lot of this will definitely affect many patients who have kidney disease. When we think in terms of meal planning and eating, one of the things you want to do is you want to avoid increased sugar intake, which can increase the risk for obesity, diabetes, type 2, and heart disease. These recommendations and meal planning that I'm speaking in terms of, it's not just for the holiday season. It's just for basically what we should be considering for a healthy lifestyle. You want to avoid a lot of excessive salt and salt in foods in your diet, especially if you have hypertension. And for patients who have kidney disease, that's extremely important because the more salt you have, the more fluid you retain, giving to excessive edema. When we think in terms of also, we want to avoid lots of sugary drinks, which can lead to increased calories and no nutritional value. There are a lot of drinks that are on the market that are definitely being marketed and advertised, but a lot of these can also lead to obesity. We drink a lot, but a lot of us don't drink water. So I highly want to recommend that drinking at least 6 to 8 glasses of water daily. And that water is not sugar water, nothing with Kool-Aid or a lot of the other things that could be added to it and mixed in. Eating nuts. Nuts are high in fat, but they are very nutritious and healthy. So we think in terms of they're high in magnesium, vitamin E, fiber, and a lot of other nutrients. Now, there may be some who have food allergies or allergic reactions. So again, if you have these type of issues, these are things that you would not want to include, and many of those who have them, because they can be quite deadly if you have these allergic reactions. We also want to look at avoiding a lot of processed junk foods, eating real food instead. There are lots of junk foods that are on the market. Again, they're just a lot of empty calories. And what has actually happened in our society as we have actually moved from being at home, mothers at home, and now when mothers are having to go to work. So as a result, the business industry has decided that they have come up with a lot more food industries and restaurants and all of these things. But are they healthy? No, they're there to make money. It's not about considering the cost of people's health. As we continue to look at it, there are restaurants now that are coming out and talking about what can they do to be a little bit more healthier. But basically, our society is a business and industry division. It's based upon making money, and it's not based upon being healthy. You want to avoid lots of refined carbs because they're highly processed to remove fiber, and they're low in nutrients when eaten in excess. So definitely you want to eat a lot of whole grain products, which are better sources of fiber, B vitamin, iron, and selenium. Again, for those who have maybe food allergies or different aversions to these food items, there are still a lot of other things that you can go online. And I highly recommend maybe even making referrals, having doctors make referrals to dietitians, or seeing a dietitian who could actually advise you on some of these things. When it comes down to oils, using extra virgin olive oil for heart health, which will likely decrease your heart attacks and strokes. There are you want to avoid a lot of high saturated types of fats and lard and things, which are really not as well for your heart. Spices and herbs. You can use a lot of spices and herbs. A lot of them have antioxidant properties that can be used in your cooking process. So again, there's a lot of things that we can actually look at and put into how we're cooking, not just for the holidays, but just for our lifestyle in general. As we continue on with meal planning and eating, you definitely want to increase fruits and vegetables. And many would say, well, I don't eat a lot of vegetables. A lot of this does occur during childhood when they may not be given fruits or vegetables, or especially when it comes to vegetables. Vegetables are a good source of fiber, vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. Some of these antioxidants are vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, and then you also have manganese. These are antioxidants that would be very beneficial to your health. Studies show that eating more fruits and vegetables may also cause you to live longer and decrease the risk of heart disease and diabetes type 2, obesity, and a lot of other illnesses. Oftentimes, many talk about the Mediterranean diet. I had the opportunity to go to Italy and I studied the Mediterranean diet there. Their whole concept of the Mediterranean diet is completely different than what we actually talk about here. The Mediterranean diet is actually based upon not just that covers the entire area all the way through the coast, and it goes up into Africa. So a lot of the foods that many of them eat are in smaller portions. They do eat a lot more fruits and vegetables. And they also eat fruits and vegetables that are also a lot more seasonal. We have a tendency to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and things that are out of season because they've been placed in storage. But it is so important that you really want to eat them when they're actually in season. And a lot of the foods in Italy come from different regions. And so the different regions are used when they're actually eating. And oftentimes they have a lot of family settings. They eat in family settings. So they have a family style and they don't eat out as much. So they're starting to see some changes there. Cutting down on red meat. Many people today are looking at plant-based foods and what can I eat and do I have to eat as much red meats? Many say they have many aversions to eating red meats. And when we think in terms of red meat, you want to say, well, what is actually considered to be red meat? Red meat would be beef, pork, lamb, mutton, veal, or goat. And so one of the things you want to look at, maybe even buying red meats or some form of it, you may want to buy it leaner cuts, which are 90 to 95% lean, or they're grass-fed beef or lamb. You may want to add a little bit more fish and poultry and increase more of your plant-based protein foods like legume and almonds, chickpeas, soy products, tofu. So there are a lot more things that you can actually add to your diet. And one of the most important things, when I was growing up, sometimes you have food and it's just overcooked. So don't overcook or burn your meat. A lot of this can lead to harmful compounds that increase the risk of cancer. And we know that. So you definitely want food should be cooked at the proper temperature. You don't want the protein to be denatured. So definitely pay attention when you're in the kitchen and when you're cooking, and especially during this time of year, during the holidays. Plant-based proteins, they also boost your metabolism to help you to feel full, eat less calories, and reduce your cravings. What's very important is don't smoke or do drugs, and you want to drink in moderation. As speaking and listening to the doctor earlier, the psychiatrist, one of the issues that we do have when we think in terms of food, we have a lot of smoking and drinking and drugs, which are actually leading to a lot of the chronic medical conditions that we often see. I see dialysis patients who are on dialysis, but yet are still smoking. And then a lot of them will come to me and want to know if they can still drink and how much they can drink. And that's an issue for many of them because many of them are on fluid restrictions. So if a lot of their fluid intake is coming from drinks and alcohol of other things in greater amount that it should be, that creates a lot of problems. And a lot of these patients are definitely more prone to have an edema and fluid overload, which then sends them to the hospital. Another thing is that I've also found that when I was working in psychiatry, I did that for about 25 years. When you have a lot who are taking a lot of various medications and psychotropic medications, a lot of that will also causes a change in some of their eating habits, and some of those things will also, and drugs will lead to obesity. So again, we want to make sure that we're looking at medical conditions that may cause us to eat more, drink more. A lot of psych patients smoke a lot. And here's part of my favorite: fasting and prayer. Water, fast, and tea to help. That's just one form. Some you may have abstinence, but water, fast, and tea can help curb hunger while focusing on prayer and getting closer to God. You want to keep the fasting short, especially if you're new and you've never tried fasting. You want to maybe try somewhere between 2 to 8 hours. Maybe you might want to go from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock, and you concentrate your time on fasting. But if you have problems, you want to stop fasting if you feel unwell. Eat plenty of healthy whole foods on your non-fasting days. Some of the Bible verses, I want to read one of this. This is in Matthew 6 and 18. Matthew 6 and 18, it just states that, let's see, is that when you fast, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but your Father who is in his secret place, your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So again, go into that secret place where you actually are at, and then you can actually fast. Okay, another Bible verse would be in 1 Corinthians 6 and 19. It talks about your body being for the Holy Spirit. Keep moving.
Shirley.
Keep moving. It's very important that you want to keep moving. You want to plan and set times for exercise and other fun activities. Walk in the neighborhood when weather permits. Wear a mask. Practice safe social distancing. And at least you want to be 6 feet from others while you're outside. If it can be greater, that is better for you. Fresh air combined with moderate aerobic activities can help clear the mind and boost energy levels, decrease your blood pressure, improve your digestion, lower stress, and increase vitamin D levels on a sunny day. Sometimes I hear individuals say, well, I'm not able to walk or to participate in any form of exercise, because many of them say that they have maybe knee joint pains or other types of pain. I had it on here, but I wanted to go over that CBD oil has showed evidence that it may help to relieve the pain. So you may even want to try some CBD oil just to rub into your on your joints in those areas, and that may allow you to have a relief of pain that would allow you to be able to get up and do movement in areas, whether it's for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but definitely you want to make sure that you're able to keep moving. Good sleep time is crucial. Most of us are on such a busy schedule that we really don't get adequate sleep. So adequate sleep will help your body clock or your circadian clock rhythm for deeper, more restful sleep. This is really important. You really want to go into a deep sleep and making sure that you really are able to boost all the energy that you can get. Many people are up half the night or sleep or with irregular sleep patterns. And as a result, that will definitely have an effect on your appetite as well as your mood. And for those individuals during this time of COVID who are not working and they're up at night or watching television, you have to be extremely careful, because this is a time in which televisions promote food. You're eating more, gaining weight. Most people are in more, so they're having a tendency to gain a lot more weight. You definitely want to make sure that you get adequate sleep and be mindful of some of the foods that you're actually snacking on during this time period. Deep breathing exercises decrease the stress and increase your calmness. So you want to relieve pain due to release of the endorphins, because they have to, and you want to detox the body, release the carbon monoxide, and improve your entire immune system. It is so important that deep breathing is also a time in which you bring yourself into a state of calmness and just complete meditation. And that's a time when you, again, a time to spend being thankful and grateful for all the things that we do have. Right now during COVID, we don't have control over any of this. Basically, a lot of this is our everyday movement. So much of this is in the hands of God. And so when we actually just take our time and we can meditate, asking God, what should I eat? What should I do? How should I move through this time? He will give you that guidance if you allow yourself just to be patient, be prayerful, and be thankful. Pretty much that is all of what I actually have. And again, during the holidays, what would be some good foods or ideas that you can actually come in? What could I actually eat? So when you think in terms of what you could actually eat, if you had turkey, if there's a ham, or if there's a roast beef, you can think in terms of maybe could I have a green salad? Could we put different types of salads out? Whereas a lot of times, often in the Black communities, they don't eat a lot of vegetables, and we make sure you're not overcooking all of the different vegetables. Here's a great time to have different types of vegetables, whether that's okra or cabbage, or you're having greens, which are very popular. Again, how do you prepare those things? Adding fresh fruits, cutting back on some of the desserts, a lot of the desserts that we may have, cut back on some of those types of foods. And again, if you're having gatherings, and there should be very, very small gatherings, you want to make sure that during that time, you are still 6 feet apart. Another thing is you could prepare meals and then put them on the doorstep and take them to your family members. You're still sharing and having meals together, but you're preparing the meals, and then you're going to take them. If you're local, you can drop them off, and you're sharing these meals with family members of different things that you've actually been able to have and enjoy the time. So really, in conclusion, I really want to say that Thanksgiving and the holiday, it's a time to be thankful and grateful. But food is actually an extension of our culture. It's a memorable thing. It helps us to share all of our memories and our culture. But we want to remember that during this time of COVID, it does bring about certain limitations. And we will all get through this. But with these limitations, the most important thing that you want to remember of being safe, as I've given earlier, the statistical numbers of those in the Black community that are faced with obesity, high blood pressure, kidney disease, heart disease, diabetes. If we continue to use food as a source of problem solving, we're going to continue to see beyond COVID so many more illnesses and or death that are definitely affecting our community. So again, from my heart, be safe. And for me, people ask me, what do I eat? This is the honest truth. I am not in love with food. Food is, for me, food is to nourish my body. I am in love with God. I am truly in love with God. And I want to know that I have walked all over this earth, and I've been able to do the will of God. He's put me on 5 continents to study and educate, to help others. But food is a culture, and I've eaten food all over the world from different people. I mean, I've eaten dog, you name it. I've had birds in Egypt, and I've eaten different foods, bird eggs in the Philippines. I did it because it was a part of their culture. It showed that I wanted to be a part of their belonging. But it wasn't that it's going to, I'm not in love with food. I'm just not in love with food. And so again, oftentimes I talk to people, I'm in love with this. Yes, let's enjoy it, but let's enjoy and love our family more than we love the food, so that we can be around to have the time to share and be grateful for the things that we actually do have.
Thank you, Francis, so much. I appreciate that. You're a source of knowledge. I wonder if there are any questions that, Michelle, that you see. I want to ask one in the meantime. As a nephrologist, I had a patient 2 days ago who happened to be a patient with kidney disease, and his blood pressure was 280 over 130, which was ridiculous. And I think that a lot of this is because many of us in our community equate something that tastes good as being salty. Can you just comment on salt for a moment and how we need to control that in our diet?
Okay. Again, one of the most important things is we have to remember that with the salt is even added into toothpaste. And when we think of terms of sodium chloride, they put it into everything. We have to be concerned with so much salt. And again, if you're a kidney patient, we know that high salt levels, again, have an effect on retention of fluid. So again, all of these faulty foods, and many of them say, well, I can't eat unless I have bacon. I can't eat unless I have all the ham, and I can't. Some of these things that, again, when you look at the sodium content of it, it definitely is going to affect your blood pressure, because the blood pressures are not being controlled because of the stress. The blood pressures are not under control because of fluids. The blood pressures are not under control when we think in terms of not only just the fluid, but all of the other things that are going on in the body. So again, for individuals that are having kidney disease, this is a crucial time for many of them. During this COVID, I can actually say most of these patients are very frightened. They have so many comorbid conditions that if they're exposed to anyone, they could be sick. Their diet is essential. For them to eat a banana and have a banana or a sweet potato pie, the potassium levels will rise so high, most of them would be put into the hospital. And if they don't go to the hospital because they're refusing that, then the doctors are going to have to look at trying to give them some form of medication in order to reduce the potassium levels, just so that they will not end up with heart arrhythmias. So again, what they're eating is essential.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tillery. Appreciate it. Hope you can stick around for questions. Dr. Neighbor?
Thank you so much. Ms. Tillery, we know about, it's obvious that if we cut ourselves a slice of chocolate cake, that this is high in sugar, high in carbohydrates. But could you speak just a minute to the issue of hidden sugars?
Okay. Well, there are a lot of hidden sugars, but let me address the fact that eating chocolate cake.
Yes.
I mean, this is the holiday season. And so again, when I think in terms as a dietitian, some will say, well, I don't eat this. I think that you could eat it all. But the question is what portion that you actually eat? What did you eat prior to before you actually had that meal? So again, it's quite mindful. If you're going to go to a family event and you know that they're going to have food, it's a good idea to maybe have a very light breakfast. So when you get there, you're not starving and you're not really hungry. Have water. But you want to make sure that, can I eat chocolate cake? Yes, you could eat a piece of chocolate cake. Yes, you could eat a piece of chocolate cake and sweet potato pie. But when you think in terms of what portion is that I'm going to eat in relationship to the rest of the meal, I would say enjoy it. So when we think in terms of all of the hidden sugars, yes, there are a lot of hidden sugars. And so we have sorbitol and mannitol and all of these different types of sugars that are being added to a lot of the foods. So again, the alcohol sugars, you want to just be cautious. Read the food labels. But again, eat everything in moderation so that you can enjoy everything. A lot of restaurants and buffets places, if you go now, they will make desserts in very small portion control. And so you're able to go out and eat that. So the same thing that you can actually do at home or in restaurants. Remember that your body is really the temple of the Holy Spirit. And when we think in terms of illness, you have to ask yourself, what price am I willing to pay for my health? What price am I willing to pay that eating this food, is this more important to me than my family? And food is so important that it is a domino effect. When you're eating so much food and you're sick, it's not just about you. It's also about your family members who have to go to the hospital to see you or come by and see you. Your illnesses then may have an effect on them, the time they spend with you. So it's very important. You're not your own person. From the time you came into the world, you're not your own person. And so what you do in your life definitely affects other people. Your health affects other people, because with your health, you need, it's like in psychiatry, you need that family support. And every time you choose to indulge into things that would be detrimental to your body, it also is detrimental to your family, because you're looking to them to provide support for you. So enjoy the holiday, but again, enjoy your family a lot more.
Miss Tillery, you have done a wonderful job of connecting to some of the same streams of thought that Dr. Walks was sharing with us around priority setting. And I want to thank you for sharing with us the insights that you have this afternoon. There are some more questions, and I hope that you can stay with us and be able to respond to some of the questions in chat when we have our open forum towards the end. But at this point, we need to move the program forward with a visit from one of our dear friends, the Reverend Dr. Chavane Jones, who is from Lithonia, Georgia. He is in the middle of the hot spot right now. And we want to welcome him at this point to share with us some words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Well, praise the Lord. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I'm excited about the doctor speaking and this wonderful lady who is Miss Neighbor, of part of the Neighbor family. Is that right?
That is true.
Do you remember a lady named Wilma Neighbor?
Yes, she was my sister-in-law.
Oh yes, we lived in the same place in Atlanta, Georgia.
Really?
She had a son named Ron, and she had two boys, I think. One was named Ronald.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We were
The other
good
one's name
friends.
was Tony.
That's right. We used to spend a lot of time at the pool, because the pool was right behind where they lived. And we were very glad to have that opportunity to visit with them. I wanted to know who you were in that respect.
Yep.
Also, I really like, there's a passage of scripture. I do a lot of translating in the original text and find things that were not available in the original text. One of the things is Romans chapter 12, verses 1, 2, and 3, particularly, and sometimes verse 4. It talks about, we talk about talking to each other on a horizontal basis, but the fact that we have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ gives us a vertical communication that we don't use, we need to use. And it's lost in the translation of the 12th chapter of Romans, where it talks about, it says, I beseech you there. The Greek phrase that is kataleo. It means parakaleo. It means I call you alongside, I call you near to me, into that place called the secret place. The secret place in Matthew chapter 16, and also in Psalm 91, the secret place is being drawn near to the Lord. He that dwells in the secret of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. You got to be close to be in the shadow. It says so in the 12th Romans chapter 12, I call you near to present your body as a living sacrifice, to be alive, wholly acceptable unto you, which is your logical worship, spiritual worship. Then it says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Only the Lord can transform a mind. You can talk all you want on a parallel relationship, but only the vertical relationship is able to transform and transform you so your mind can be renewed. Then the next verse, very poorly translated in the King James Version particularly, and says, and do not be transformed, for I say to you, to the grace given unto me, the one being in me, the one being in you, says the Greek text. And then the King James Version has 4 manifestations of the Greek verb phrenio, which means to think, phreno. And it says really, but in the Greek text, there are 4 expressions of it. It says, instead of thinking yourself more highly than your thing, it says, do not overthink beyond what is necessary to think, but to think toward the one who thinks soundly in you. And that is that redemption that the Lord gives us in the person out of the mouth of the Lord Jesus Christ. Then it says, for I say the grace given to me, the one being to you, not to overthink what is necessary to think, but to think toward the one who thinks soundly in you, who is able to transform your mind. Amen. Then it says, carry through. The word there, carry through, carry through, carry through. Theophorus is the word, carry through, which means to follow through, using that gift of being drawing near to the Lord, to do those things that are able to transform your mind, getting rid of all of that stress and that thing. But it's done in a vertical relationship because of your saving grace relationship in Jesus Christ. All right. And so there's another relationship that takes into consideration Romans chapter 7, verse 14 to 25, which also talks about the mind thing and the thing that we're not alone in our minds. And there's a whole lot of things that we are not creatures of free will. We have freedom of choice. And that's a very different thing. Oh, well, I guess I've talked enough about that. But also the psychologist mentioned something about smiling. And I wanted to share with you a song that I've been working on in my repertoire. Hopefully you can receive it today. Can you hear the music?
Yeah.
Yes.
Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. Though there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your tears and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you. Light up your faith with gladness. Hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Smile. If you smile, keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile If you just smile, smile.
You know, I think we all needed to hear that. I know it
Beautiful.
certainly spoke to me. And we want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the joy that you bring with your voice. And we hope that you will come back and visit with us again soon.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'd be liking that.
Thank you.
All
Now
right.
it is my pleasure to bring on the chairman of the board, Mr. Carl Brooks, the chairman of the board of Black Health Trust, to share with you the mission and the needs of Black Health Trust. Mr. Brooks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the past 2 months, we have asked for your support in 2 different important ways. We started out talking about voting, and the second one is relative to donations. You have heard us and responded in a very, very positive way to our request to get your voting participation. And the minority community, communities of color, have voted in outstanding record-breaking numbers to support the various candidates. We couldn't be more pleased, and the incoming presidents are recognizing the importance of the African-American vote and other minority votes. So we thank you for following our guidance and answering our requests. We have also asked for your support in donating to the Black Health Trust. We know that the founders of this group had a vision to be able to provide outstanding, positive information to our communities to make sure that we addressed all the health concerns that impact our community. And we've run the gamut of starting with donations from the founders and us on the board to now we need help from you. We're at a stage where we need the support of those 7,000 to 10,000 viewers who watch our program every Sunday. We need your help. I got online yesterday to see how hard it was to donate. And it's a very simple process. You click on blackhealthtrust.org and you see the donation box right on the right-hand side. It's very, very simple. We recognize that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and we recognize that unemployment rates are crazy within our community. But we also know that we've always been able to find the resources to do those things that are most important to us. We need your help. This program is outstanding. The doctors are world-class, the advisors are world-class, and we're working on a shoestring in order to fund the program. We need your help in order to continue the program going forward. We're beginning to talk to grant writers and fundraisers to help us with this regard, but we need our own help. We need to provide our own support also. In my prior career, most of you know that I was president and CEO of a group called the Executive Leadership Council. That group is the most senior African-American executives in Fortune 500 companies. And we grew the support for that company and that group from a small number to a large number by looking first at self. How could we donate and we can contribute? And then we went to the corporations. The good news was that our members were senior executives in those corporations and had big budgets, and we were able to get great support. The brainstorm was when we created what we called the CEO Summit and started inviting CEOs, Parsons and Ken Chenault and others, and not just African-American CEOs. The CEO is filled with talented executives that care about their communities. And we began to raise money and set records in terms of what we were doing with that organization. One of my good friends is Camilla McGee, who's a vice president at ELC. She's watching today, and I'm gonna be talking to her this week so we can put our heads together and figure out ways that we can encourage and do things differently with the Black Health Trust. The budget is issues are real. We need to increase the amount of support. We need to provide the right kind of equipment to make sure that these programs stay at a high level. And we need to increase the budget. And the first two things that they ask you when they look at you for fundraising is, what is your budget and how much are you helping yourself? We need to help ourselves first, and then we'll get the support of these other contributors. This isn't an organization of just African-American doctors and medical providers. We've reached out to Dr. Facie, and we have other talented non-African-American doctors and business executives that participate with us on a weekly basis. Dr. Facie and his group have responded by saying that they'll look at the January timeframe, and that would be a great timeframe with all of the stuff that we're doing with vaccines. So we're looking to expand this. We need your help. We don't want to be going hand in mouth continually. We need to take this to the next level, and we need your help. Thank you guys very much, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I think the message is clear. We need the help of our audience. And now we're going to move forward with the program with our next speaker, Dr. Ajay Ananda, who is a well-known neurosurgeon and known specifically for his expertise in complex spinal diseases and the surgical treatment of movement disorders and pain. But in addition to his life as a neurosurgeon, he has also created a new company called Second Opinion Experts, the purpose of which is to provide an online vehicle for you to get a second opinion regarding any medical condition or treatment. So he is going to be sharing with us this afternoon his comments around COVID and the brain, as well as second opinion.
If I can add, Dr. Ajay Ananda and his father and several others created a company called Second Opinion Experts. They have done a strategic relationship with those of us at Black Health Trust and Biometrics, and are going to be co-venturing with us on the platform that is patented to use this for the benefit of communities of color. And we certainly welcome Dr. Ajay Ananda to the platform. Dr. Ananda, he's also chief of neurosurgery at Kaiser Sunset. I believe that's correct.
Well, thanks for that wonderful introduction, and thanks for allowing me to be a part of this event today. Can everyone hear me and see the first slide?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, so great. So I'll keep it pretty brief. I know the fatiguing nature of longer Zoom meetings. 2020 has left all of us to be no strangers to the reality and the challenges of meeting remotely. So first, I'll talk to you about the platform Second Opinion Expert, and just a quick overview of the next few slides. It's a very short talk, but I'd like to hit a couple of points: the history, kind of an overview of how this works, how it's currently being deployed, and thoughts about the future. So first off, as you can see this electoral map below you, where you live determines so much of your life. Okay, of course, not just in the politics of the region, but the food you eat, the way you talk, what you're taught in schools, just the culture of the ecosystem that raises you. There's the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. As you get more granular, this is of course the map of the continental United States. If you get more granular on zoom in on a state and then zoom further in on a city, it really changes even where you live, like in relation to Main Street, where there's patches of blue next to the city hall, next to the libraries, but as you get further out, it's all red. And how that equates to medical care is very important, because if you live in a rural community, the doctor you see, the expertise you get may be more narrow compared to if you lived, for example, down the street from Mass General Hospital in Boston, or Women and Children Hospital in Los Angeles. So the question is, clearly where you live is going to impact the language you speak and your parents, but does it have to have such a great factor in how you deliver medical care? And the question is, and so this as the innovations of technology have made, the remote social distancing of the pandemic a possibility, so we're not all just tucked away in our homes, we can still see each other, meet new people, have virtual happy hours, have virtual check-ins with faraway family and friends that you can't visit on the holidays. Years before this, really now getting close to 8-10 years ago, we thought of a way, is there a way that we can leverage this information technology into a way of providing healthcare, providing access to medical records, access to medical expertise? So not just within your community, but outside of the community, outside of even the country that you live in. Sorry. So the idea is to take a patented online technology that makes medical access fast, easy, affordable, the way you can broaden your reach. So you're not only limited to the people in your neighborhood, in your zip code, but to board certified medical expertise from anywhere in the world. And people have drilled down to what the value of second opinion medical care is. And it's shown in multiple studies. You can look up in New England Journal of Medicine, multiple studies that show the decrease in morbidity, the increase in quality of care, and the dramatic reduction in cost. Even though taking on a second opinion, obviously there's a cost that's needed to pay the doctor for the secondary advice. Even then, factor into that, the quality of care is so much higher and the waste and inappropriate care is so reduced that the overall care becomes more affordable and more curated, a higher level of care. So in this slide, we'll talk about the traditional elements of a doctor-patient relationship. What's the first prima facie burden? You need to have a safe and secure private place where a doctor and patient can meet. And beyond just this physical place, but going to a place, also you see the person's diplomas on the wall, you see the area in which he practices, you see the other patients that go to see this provider, and it gives a little bona fide, some gravitas to that. Oh yeah, this is a real life doctor. He's not like outside of a Carl's Jr. That this is a place where I can come with my sick child, with my sick spouse, and he or she are going to be cared for. What else do you need? You need a means of communicating with the office staff. So that means the doctor not only needs a place, but also needs a staff, an answering service, a way of booking appointments, keeping track of tests, reaching back, having ongoing correspondence with the patients. What's a third thing you need? Charts. So in that picture, you see this is the age-old charts. My mother is a neurologist. I remember 40 years ago as a young child going to her office on the weekends and making a little extra money by alphabetizing the charts. And as our care has become more sophisticated, these paper charts have less and less a role in the care of patients, because you may be seeing one doctor for your obstetrical needs, another doctor because you hurt your hip, another doctor because of headaches or multiple sclerosis, and another doctor because of a cancer, and another doctor for a screening colonoscopy, and then your regular doctor when you have a cold and you start having a fever or a cough. So these doctors, not only are they separate people, but they're typically in separate places and are attached to different institutions. So where is the actual chart that says, oh, you've had your tetanus shot? Oh, no, you're allergic to penicillin. You've already had a hip replacement. Maybe you're on a blood thinner and you can't have these other medicines. And as our care has become more sophisticated, unfortunately, a byproduct of that is the care becomes more fractured. And it's much harder to integrate that using the methods of old, these old paper handwritten charts. And then lastly, ultimately, it takes quite a cost to become a doctor. Like I said, for all the reasons we talked about, there's an overhead to the practice of medicine. There's an extreme cost to the training it takes to become a doctor. And so ultimately, even though we're in the service industry, there is a need for payment for services rendered. And so all these elements take place in a doctor's office that ensure the doctor to provide for the needs of the patient. Next slide. So the traditional, we'll say the A's of a physician's practice are we called availability, accountability, affordability, and most important, ability. So as we transition, what at Second Opinion Experts, what we'd like to do is to provide a virtual platform to expand of any physician their ability to care for a patient that's not purely limited by where they happen to hang a shingle or where they happen to set up practice or where they live. They can deploy their expertise, open up their ability to care for patients from across their community, from communities like theirs in other states and even other countries. And we'll talk about how COVID has actually in many ways helped us in the slide to come. But so we look at each of the traditional essential prima facie burdens of a physician: availability, accountability, affordability, and most importantly, ability, and look at, well, what is the virtual solution to each of these things? So starting with availability, the Second Opinion Experts platform is cloud-based. And what that means, it can be accessed from anywhere around the world. All you need is a cell phone, an iPhone, a computer, an iPad. I've used this on all three of these modalities, and it works just as well. Accountability. So this has to be timely. So when a patient has a problem, they're diagnosed with breast cancer and they want to get an opinion, do they need a surgery? Do they need a lumpectomy or a mastectomy? Which one? Or they need a chemo in addition to all these things? They want to be able to reach out to a doctor and in a reasonable time being able to get the doctor to review their condition, review their chart. So with a virtual solution, not only can this be very timely in an asynchronous way where a patient can make a request to be seen or to be screened by a physician, the doctor then, once the physician accepts that, the system keeps track of when the request was initiated, and the doctor has only so much time to reply. You can set the guidelines for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, but this way, the patient knows that in whatever the specified time is, the doctor will get back to them. Furthermore, because it is asynchronous, a doctor we know is busy most of the time, 9 to 5. If he's a surgeon, when he's in surgery, he's doing surgery. But much of the time where a doctor is waiting for a test to be done, for a surgeon, waiting for a patient to go to sleep, waiting for the next patient to be ready, or maybe there's a cancellation, or maybe the doctor's just on a Saturday waiting for their kid's soccer practice to start, or waiting for pick up their daughter from an art class that's ongoing. During these quiet times where the doctor is otherwise just going to surf his phone or her phone or look at Instagram or go on YouTube, the doctor can actually leverage their free time, if they so choose, to do something productive, something that can be remunerated, something that can also provide a benefit to whichever patient population they're trying to serve. This is the example of the Uber of apps. The nice thing about Uber is if you have a car and you have a driver's license, you can leverage those two resources to work for you when you want, however much you want. And the same is true with a physician. They have the knowledge in their mind, the capacity to take care of whatever specific medical subproblem they may have. And now this platform allows them to access it for the betterment of any specific patient population they want to serve, when and how they want to do it. Then affordability, billing. So in the traditional sense, medicine is a fee-for-service practice in America. And so there's a whole ecosystem of billers, collections that has to take place typically in a brick and mortar retail office. But the nice thing about the virtual platform is a platform like Second Opinion can take care of all the billing needs, can bill the patient, can get payment, can reimburse the doctor, and the same thing through their insurance. Now, what's different since the pandemic is telemedicine is relatively new. Even though the original seeds were planted, really 10 years ago when wireless broadband became more available, but able to practice it across state lines, to be able to access insurance. Well, now that the hospitals have become a dangerous place for patients and families, the government has realized that. So keeping people out of the potential harm of spreading COVID has allowed for this this quick change in the laws that regulate and control telemedicine. And this has allowed for this enormous mushrooming and logarithmic expansion in the capacity of services like ours in telemedicine. And the last and most important of the A's is ability. How able are you to care for this patient? And the nice thing about platforms such as ours is an extraordinary tight ability of quality control it allows. For example, I'm a neurosurgeon. We have experts in pretty much every subspecialty of medicine. Now, I don't have the bandwidth to take care of every neurosurgical patient that may want to sign up for it, but I can audit, as the director within neurosurgery, I can audit the different neurosurgical care provided by the other neurosurgeons in our group and make sure that, that each of the patients are getting the most optimal care. And similarly, we have such quality control for every subspecialty within medicine at large. Furthermore, there's an ability of quality control that happens in telemedicine that doesn't happen in traditional fee-for-service face-to-face encounter. And that is, as the purveyor of the medicine or the surgery, in my case, all I care about is what is in the patient's best interest. But as you know, in a fee-for-service model, you may come in with a simple thing like knee pain, and you just need some rest, physical therapy. But if you're seeing a knee surgeon, he makes his livelihood. He puts his kids through college. He pays for his house or his car lease by doing that knee surgery. But if you're seeing a virtual knee surgeon and they're going to look at your MRI remotely and they can talk to you remotely, they know that you're not going to fly to, if you're coming from Georgia, you're not going to fly to Portland to have your knee surgery done by that surgeon. But you can give an unbiased, honest opinion. Do you need knee surgery? Would physical therapy be your better chance? Do you need a small arthroscopy, or do you need a complete new joint? But these kind of things, often in the world of medicine, it's the rooster who's in charge of the hen house, right? It's the doctor that sometimes is there. The motivation of the doctor is not necessarily aligned with the motivation of the patient. And having a remote, separate opinion where you can just provide your thoughts without relying on that patient as a way of remuneration, that also adds to a sense of quality in the type of care we can deliver. So, current opportunities. This is how the platform is initially was thought to be used and currently used primarily for second opinions. For example, I see a lot of neurosurgical patients that, unfortunately have brain tumors, a spinal disease, spinal trauma, head trauma, and there's some place that they may not feel confident in the care they're getting. I can be sent their pictures, review their story, and give them my opinion without any specter of bias. But now, with the expansion of telemedicine, this can be done, this type of remote care can be expanded to the primary visit for primary doctors, pediatricians, obstetricians. Nextly, mobile medics. This is a concept that in the old days, doctors would make house calls to a community. Well, we're producing a platform of medics. These are typically retired Army medics that essentially are hooked onto a mobile app, not like a healthcare version of Uber, where let's say you're a patient and you live in some remote place that don't have access to a specialty for multiple sclerosis, and you've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, you have some new weakness, you can't get out of bed, and you're afraid this is a MS exacerbation. It could just be an arthritic joint, it could be an MS exacerbation. You can sign up to have this service where a medic, a quote unquote mobile medic, where a healthcare provider, it's not a doctor, can come out, take your vital signs, relay that to an actual doctor synchronously, and can examine you in a way that by the prompts of the doctor, and then relay that information to the doctor, and then a real life decision can be made, even though the doctor is not physically with you, but a proxy of that physician can get the information that they would otherwise get if you were sitting in front of them, like your blood pressure, your heart rate, even your O2 sat, how the joint is shaped, how your motor exam is. So this way can get more data that's typically you would need to be in physical face-to-face with the physician. This can be done remotely. Currently also we're using this platform to expand the ability for different corporations for their COVID testing, and ultimately we hope to do it for the deployment of novel vaccines. So this next slide looks at specifically in the setting of biometrics, and a construct of Dr. Maxey and his team that can use a platform like Second Opinion Experts to deliver virtual medicine, to become essentially a virtual back office, a virtual office space for providers and a place for patients. So again, you can read the things, improve health outcomes by expanding your access to medical expertise. You can optimize treatment. You have an ability to get peace of mind because you have confidence in that these doctors are curated, they're credentialed. You can go back and see exactly their bona fides of each doctor. And then the accessibility, where you can get expertise. It doesn't matter where you specifically live. The platform, the entry would be something like this, and it's a cloud-based system, so you can get to it from your phone. There'll be a physician portal, a patient portal. This is essentially how it works. You become a member to this platform. You ask for an opinion. There's a way the platform has what's called an electronic medical record. Really, that's the machinery that makes all of this possible. So all those charts where one person has a chart of your childhood vaccination, another person has a chart of the medicines you're on, another person has a paper chart of a surgery you had or a chest x-ray you had. All of this will be digitized and available to people the doctors, the providers that you want to have access to your records. This is all HIPAA compliant. It's very safe, very secure. And then you get that information to the person you want, you specifically want that information to get to. And then the panel has got dozens of very skilled, curated doctors that you can trust that are there specifically knowing the needs of the community that's reaching for them. And then the future. So just like 10 years ago, I don't think Obama was president. I don't think anybody could dream that sources like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram were going to be used to get Trump elected president. But really, that's what happened. So these digital platforms, whether it's social media sites, when Amazon came out 20 years ago, I thought it was just a bookseller. Now it's the biggest company in the world, right? So a lot of these digital technologies, they grow organically based on what the users come up with. So I certainly am not creative enough to know what the next iteration of what Second Opinion Expert is going to be used for. And all the smart ideas people like you will use it to expand to provide for their communities, expand for their own growth as physicians, as healthcare workers, whatever it may be, or even as a community benefit. So the beautiful thing about this type of scalable and organically evolving technology is that who knows what the future will hold for it, but it's only limited by your own imagination and the imagination of the community that's going to be involved with it. So I hope that was helpful or somewhat interesting. Thanks for the time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ananda. I appreciate your brilliance. I've had the opportunity to meet your father. He's a lawyer. Doctors and lawyers don't usually get along, but he's a brilliant man and having created this platform, and we're very pleased to be able to joint venture this and make it available to our community of color. The other thing that I'm amazed at, you yourself consulted on my relative a few months ago who had 4 strokes. And ladies and gentlemen, not often do you get to talk with neurosurgeons. They're at the top of the food chain in medicine. But this gentleman took his time in his afternoon to give us some comfort about what was going on with my relative, and we're forever grateful to you. I know you had agreed to do 2 talks today, and I'm going to ask you to come back next week with the second talk, just because our time is a little bit down the line, but I certainly appreciate you. Are there any questions in the chat box, Michelle?
Pertaining to the last presentation, second opinion, is this covered by Medicare and does it communicate with Epic?
So the first is a classic yes and no. So Medicare, we just got, now we are a Medicare provider. So it is going to be covered by Medicare. It doesn't communicate with Epic in the sense of Epic is traditionally an inpatient, Epic is an electronic medical record that many institutions use. Kaiser uses it, UCLA has switched over to it, USC switches over to it. And it's very great in the hospital setting. But the current technology, it can pull information from Epic, but I don't believe it can upload to Epic. So we can get CTs, MRIs, these kind of raw digital data and pull it from Epic. It's a one-way transmission, but we can't, at least to my knowledge, currently upload notes to Epic. But typically, since Epic is mainly used for like institutional inpatient hospitalizations, and this is very much an outpatient platform, I don't think it's that big of a chasm, the fact that it doesn't communicate readily with Epic.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Dr. Neighbor, first of all, thank you, Dr. Ananda. I appreciate it. I'm going to be looking to talk back with you soon and bring you back to the Black Health Trust. I want Dr. Neighbor Stephen, if you would, to introduce my friend and one of the leaders of the National Medical Association, former chair of the board and head of the nominating committee, but who now does much more important things. Dr. Neighbor.
Thank you, Dr. Maxey. It is my pleasure to introduce this afternoon Dr. Virginia Kane. In addition to all of the things that Dr. Maxey mentioned about her, she is the director of the Marion County Public Health Department. And for those of you who would have, like me, who would have no idea what that or where that is, this is Indianapolis. And as the director of the Indianapolis Health Department, she is intimately involved in the COVID management for her community. She is also, I know she has been, I'm not sure if she still is, a participant at ACIP, which is that body at CDC that helps to determine vaccination status in this country. And she is well known in multiple areas. She is actually a former president of the American Public Health Association. So I asked Dr., she is eminently qualified to do what I asked her to do. I asked her to please interpret for us the news that we heard over the past week regarding the announcement of the near-term availability of the 2 COVID vaccines, and to explain to us what is actually their status now and what is going to happen over the next few days and weeks in terms of the process of approval, and what questions should we as the community ask about these vaccines as we make our individual decisions about down the road whether or not we will actually receive the vaccinations. So without further ado, I'd like to present Dr. Virginia Kane.
So thank you so much for the honor, and especially Dr. Randall Maxey, a past president of the National Medical Association. I'm currently the chair of infectious diseases for the NMA section. I'm on the Indiana vaccine allocation and delivery for the state of Indiana. And I'm also on the National Medical Association's COVID-19 task force. Plus I'm a bug doctor. So I am an associate professor of medicine and infectious diseases. And so I'm just honored to be here. And I see some of my best friends on this call, Jesse Sherrod and some others. So just nice seeing everybody. Let me be quick because I think you have a tight schedule. And if I have time, I got some tips for Thanksgiving too as well. But we've had, there are 4 front runners for the vaccine. Oh, Michelle, how are you? I've always, trust me, Michelle is who I go to for mental health. And in this business, anybody is an essential healthcare worker, you know of chronic fatigue. What can I tell you? It's just, and it's a high risk area, especially for essential health professionals throughout our communities. But let me start by saying that there are 4 front runner vaccines out there. You have the number one that just admitted themselves to the Food Drug Administration for approval. This emergency authorization, just put that in Friday. And it normally takes 2 to 4 weeks once you submit it for emergency authorization to approve the drug. They've already set Pfizer's drug for the meeting to be either, I believe it's December the 8th or December the 10th. And this is a special group that's selected by CDC who have expertise in vaccines to make that decision. And they will make that decision in one day, and within 24 hours of that decision, you will see that particular vaccine being distributed across the country within 24 hours. We actually know that they have already produced 20 million doses of the Pfizer drug in terms of, and its effectiveness is 95%, but it does require 2 doses, and you are protective 2 weeks after you receive that second dose, which is between 21 to 28 days. And so who's eligible for this drug? Who's the number one person? Of course, it's our essential healthcare workers. It's so critical. And then our first responders. But then the second group has to be our very high risk individuals. So individuals who are seniors or high chronic medical conditions, like in our long-term care facilities. And then phase B has to do with the individuals who are the highest risk for contracting this infection, and severity is great. For example, African Americans or Blacks are twice the death rate compared to their white counterparts. But our Hispanics may be number one now in terms of contracting these cases, and you may see them at 3 times the rate of their white counterparts contracting the cases, with African Americans twice the rate of contracting this infection. Moderna is the other company that's producing the second vaccine. It is expected sometime soon, probably in the next 2 weeks, that they're going to ask for emergency authorization to dispense this drug. Now, one of our issues, of course, is concerned about the safety, concerned about, is it really as effective as the clinical trials are suggesting? And so one major thing that we're concerned about from the NMA COVID task force under our president, Dr. Leon McDougall, is vaccines can work differently in different populations based on individuals' different comorbidities and co-illnesses that they have. So we may have higher rates of autoimmune disorders, such like lupus. So does this trigger any autoimmune disease in patients with this vaccine? So in order to know that, we have to have a sufficient sample of African Americans participating in these studies. And there are usually 30 to 40,000 people who are tested related to the study. Is it safe in pregnant women? Is it safe in children? So none of these vaccines have been studied in pediatric children, but they're going to start very soon. And so when I say pediatrics, do you go down to just 18 years and older? Or can you go down? I know the study is going to be at 12 years and higher, but those are the major things that we have to be concerned about. Now, the other thing is, you see the majority of side effects within this clinical trial that's been over 2 to 3 months. But you can have rare, more severe side effects, but it usually takes 2 months minimum being out in the general population so that we can see what it's like in the real world versus I'm doing studies more from a smaller number of people. And so we have to look at that. And then one, does this vaccine prevent disease completely? Or does it just make it so that if you would have a severe complication, like you require a respirator, you're intubated. And so vaccines can also make you have, if you're going to get this illness, a much milder form where you don't necessarily have to be hospitalized. You don't have to be placed on a respirator. And how does vaccines work? Well, vaccines work because vaccines produces antibodies in your body related to that particular virus. And so it starts producing a lot of antibodies in your body so that when you're exposed to this new infection, you now already have in your bloodstream loads of antibodies against that virus. So that if it does penetrate into your body, those antibodies will attach on and destroy those virus cells. So they get a dead piece of the virus and put it as part of the vaccine. It's a protein that will induce antibodies in your body. Now, it says 95% effective. Well, what does that mean? What's wrong with the other 5%? How come it's not effective in the other 5%? Well, just like the flu, do you realize that this virus, coronavirus, can mutate? And so there are different strains related to this virus. So you have to look at which of these strains is this vaccine more effective against. And then some individuals may be a little bit immunocompromised. And the older you are, sometimes you can't generate enough antibodies sufficient to fight off the infection. That's why it's not 100% effective. And so I'm excited about the efficacy. Our measles vaccines that we use for children has a 97% effectiveness, but our flu shots, which we have to determine every year because of a very high mutation rate, we have to design a new vaccine every year. And the flu vaccine's efficacy last year was just 45%. So those flu vaccines, when you can see the difference between these new corona vaccines, and they're using a totally new platform technology that's never been used before. But between a lot of research and development, which has happened in the past 5 years, they've been working on this new technology in order to speed up the process, make it faster, okay, in order to produce a sufficient number of vaccines. And each state has a different plan based on their state Department of Health about who should get the vaccine, how is it distributed. So it's standardized on one level with a playbook sent to us by the Centers for Disease Control, but the state makes its own decision about how it's distributed, what the process is, and how does it get to the people of color in terms of this vaccine distribution. When we have a lot of our people of color, they don't have a primary care provider. So how do you get that distribution? And my last question is, 1 month ago, 50% of individuals stated that they would take that vaccine. This month, it's dropped down to 40%. So vaccine hesitation is going to be a major problem. I'll stop here. And if any questions.
Yeah, let me jump to the front of the line, Dr. Kane. First of all, I certainly appreciate you coming with your expertise. I have a concern that with the term vaccine hesitancy, many of our people do not know which way to turn, right are left. We have physicians and healthcare professionals that are saying that vaccines are the worst thing in the world and they're going to implant stuff in us and kill us. And there are those groups of us who believe that vaccines have often saved us. What is your comment on whether or not we should consider taking this as a means of saving people in our community? What is the relative safety? What is the relative danger of these vaccines? That would be very appreciated if you would speak on that.
So let me just say that I'm a fan of vaccines. But what's critical to us, and even on our NMA COVID task force, is we have to see the safety data before we can feel confident, full confidence to say, hey, everybody, you should take the vaccine. And we are having meetings with Pfizer, Moderna, but we still have not received the completed safety data yet. And so until we can receive that safety data, I think we have to be cautious, and we just need to have more evidence. And we need to wait to see what the ACIP, what those experts say, because they're the ones that are going to have all of the safety data that we won't necessarily have access to. Now, we can get access to all of that data once they have been reviewed by the ACIP expert group committee, making a look at that data. We've got as much as we can get in we've had at least 2 visits with Moderna. We've had at least 3 visits with Pfizer. But we want to just be cautious and wait to see what the final results are in terms of doing widespread, I think, recommendations for this vaccine for people of color.
Let me just push you a little bit further.
Okay.
You didn't answer my question. My concern is that I believe there are various forces in our community that believe that there are these plots to harm us by taking vaccines. And I believe there's disinformation around that. And there is some legitimacy to some of the claims that vaccines contain things that can harm us. Do you believe that in a situation that, whether it be government, whether it be money interest and Bill Gates this and George Soros, is there any plot that you see against communities of color or anybody about these vaccines not being genuine, but trying to get everybody to take them so some people can make money?
So let me see if I can quantify that a little bit. We know that immunizations probably is one of the greatest public health advancements in this country. We have literally saved over millions from taking immunizations, okay? Now, because I'm being recorded, I'm gonna be a little bit cautious here. Should we be trying out any vaccines from Russia? I'll let you answer that question, okay?
No.
But I know that we've had great partnerships in the research arena with other countries that we feel very good about, and that we will be looking at that data very carefully. And if it proves out to the information that we are hearing, that I think we're hearing, I think this may be one of the greatest vaccines that's available in the country to save, my relatives who are at a certain age or individuals who have chronic medical illnesses. And I have immediate family members related to this that I will definitely take the vaccine. I encourage my family members to take the vaccine, but I have to see the data, and I have to look and see who I recognize on that committee that's doing the review of this vaccine. Some people I know has got tremendous integrity, longtime pioneers in the vaccine world, and they have saved a lot of people. You know, we used to have polio like nobody's business, gone. We used to have smallpox, nobody's business, gone. Measles has been almost practically eliminated, but we had visitors at a Disney World and started to have outbreaks across the country in college students visiting in Europe, where we've had some meningococcal infections in the school systems. And so I'm very, very hopeful. We've got some outstanding African-American scientists in these companies doing some of the development of the vaccines that we have known for a long time in our Infectious Disease Society of America. That's our big umbrella organization for all infectious diseases, academic, private practice, and whatever. So, but here's the issue, Randall. You know, when the epidemic started and we wanted to get tested, we couldn't get tested. You know, a lot of hospitals said, hey, you know, you just probably got the flu or whatever, or just tough it out. And people who actually had COVID-19 and probably needed to be hospitalized, they couldn't always get those tests, okay? So it's kind of difficult, I think, for people of color. First, when I needed to get the test and I wanted to get the test, I couldn't get access to it. And now you want me to take this vaccine. So, and we do have issues with implicit bias that takes place. And so we need to tackle this from a comprehensive worldwide issue, because you can make all the vaccine in the world, but it doesn't mean anything if no one takes the vaccine.
And Dr. Barbara Neighbor-Siva?
I have a question. I want to push a little further. I still want to know, with each vaccine, when they say they are 90% effective or 95% effective or 40% effective, what does effective mean? Does it mean that it prevents you from getting the infection? Or does it just mitigate the severity of the infection when you get it? And I would like some transparency in what is discussed about these vaccines as to what exactly they can do.
So that's a question that's asked a lot to the pharmaceutical companies. We know for a fact that it can mitigate, means it can make your infection much, much milder, so that you're less likely to be hospitalized or you're less likely to die. Now, the question is, what percentage of it is good where it prevents the infection completely? And so sometimes it may be based on how strong the dose of coronavirus that you were exposed to may make the difference. But I think the answer is not out yet, Barbara. Okay, I'm not sure that they really know the answer, because, you know, you got to get out into the field. You know, this is what I think it will do. I'm telling you what's in the lab and the test tubes, and I'm telling you what the animals are.
Jim RT or Jim Maxey.
But until you have a large enough, I'm talking about in the millions of people getting this vaccine, I think it is difficult to know the answer. But hey, I don't mind. I don't want to be on a respirator, okay? I don't want to be in that hospital for months. So I don't mind that if I'm at high risk for getting a severe infection, if that vaccine can make your condition from severe to mild, I'll take it any kind of way I can. I don't want to be in the hospital during this corona pandemic. I got better things I would like to do with my time.
Well, there are a lot of questions in the chat and the time is getting short. So we're going to have to do kind of a lightning round and try to hit some of the questions, Michelle.
Okay, let me see what I can do. The Pfizer vaccine, we'll stay on vaccines for a second. The Pfizer vaccine was rated based on 94 patients getting symptomatic, has not been published in peer-reviewed journals. Why would they give it to kids when their risk of death is so low?
I don't know that they're going to give it to kids, my understanding yet. Because of they've started the studies on kids, but I think that they're way too far away from that study for kids to give it out to kids. So I suspect it's only going to be given out to adults initially.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll jump to nutrition. Do we know what spices enhance immunity when it comes to eating?
Honestly, I honestly don't know that answer.
I think that was for, where is she? That was for Miss Tillery. Is she still on the call?
Oh, that one wasn't directed to me, right?
No, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. You scared me there.
You have sage, you have cinnamon, you have, there's another one I'm just trying to think and it's off the tip of my head. But
you think about like zinc or something like that?
Nutmeg. We were talking earlier about cooking healthily for the holidays and in general.
Yes, nutmeg, all of these different ones that you can actually use, and it definitely, because they have antioxidants that you can actually use in that. So across the board, and if someone needs, I can also submit a list to them.
So let me just tell you that tea has something called tannic acid, and it's a very good antiviral agent. So that's something to consider when you're worried about a cold. Even vitamin C can be beneficial. So think of least of those two things that can help you with your immunity against viruses.
Okay, and then we're going to jump back into vaccines. Do the vaccines you mentioned contain elements that can alter our genetics? I think that's a big mythy thing out there.
So it will change it in a little bit. So it changes sort of like your genetic code inside your bloodstream, your own cells, where because of this immunity increase, it allows you to develop antibodies. So it does change your genetic code a little bit by inducing antibodies at a significant level in order to, as those viruses get in through a special protein, it's a little knob protrusion of the virus, and it's a protein S, and it can get through in there, but these antibodies can block that entry site, and it's through something called messenger RNA and DNA of your cells, it's able to generate these proteins, antibodies in your body.
Let me follow up on that question, Dr. Kane. A virus in and of itself can change your RNA and DNA by the nature of how it works. Am I correct?
Yes, I could say that, yes.
Okay. And then the other point I would like to say, in these trials, are any of the people going to be exposed in a double-sided, double-blind trial to viruses without necessarily being having a rescue treatment available, or a so-called challenge test?
So I don't know about that, but I do know that you're going to have some patients that have both COVID-19 and influenza together. And preliminary studies suggest that if you get your flu shot, it may provide you some partial immunity that will even enhance the COVID-19 vaccine to prevent or mitigate that disease so that it is in a milder form.
I'd like to piggyback on that because there is a question about something with that. What about the theory of original antigenic sin, that due to mutation, the earliest vaccine may prevent gaining immunity from future vaccines for the mutation of the virus?
I think that's a safe bet, yes. Okay. So, as time goes on, we're having more mutations, and different strains, they will get smarter and have more resistance to the antibodies that you produce. So, 9 months from now, how long does the vaccine last? The flu antibodies last about between 9 months to 12 months. We don't have a clue how long this vaccine's immunity is going to last. If you get a natural infection of COVID-19, you have immunity about 90 days, for 90 days after you recover from COVID-19. Meaning that you can be safe around a loved one. You don't have to worry about testing yourself because that immunity is there for at least 90 days. Some people think it may even be a little bit longer, but we know for a fact it's 90 days. And so that's the answer. We don't know. We're going to have to wait for months to see how long this vaccine's immunity is going to last.
Okay.
Can I give a tip about Thanksgiving though, right quick? I had slides, but I'll just be quick about this.
Go right
Hey, anyone got any loved one that's a college student coming from coming home, and they may have someone that may be at high risk, maybe grandmother or something. When they come into your house, don't you hug your kids, okay? You make them take a shower, change their clothes, okay? And I want you to test them 72 hours. They're coming from out of state or from another city. Test them 72 hours before they come home and know what the results are before they see anyone that's in your household that may be high risk, immunocompromised for any reason, 65 and older, or they have chronic medical conditions. And definitely, restrict your gatherings to less than 10 people and no buffet styles, okay? You have one person serving everything. You got a pitcher or something you want to drink, only one person should be touching that pitcher and serving everybody. And I love those gorgeous towels in people's bathroom, but please get disposable little towels in a bathroom. When people share that gorgeous towel, I'm trying to find the corner of this towel in order to use it. You're kidding, but I had dinner with someone last week and they had gorgeous towels, but I said, I need this to be disposable. What can I say? But also, when you're eating, you've got to be sitting 6 feet apart. I'm sorry, for any outside guests outside your household. And I think that's a really critical point. And everybody should be wearing a mask in your house until you're ready to sit down and eat. And I love to watch the football games during Thanksgiving, but you kick your guests out and let them watch football at home, okay? Only family members need to stay. And of course, anybody that looks like they have symptoms of COVID-19, and you need to ask your guests or tell your guests, you need to catch me next year. So, and a lot of people will tell you, oh, honey, I just got allergies. So I'm fine to come over there. Let me tell you, those symptoms of allergies, it's just like COVID-19. And just because you have an allergy doesn't mean you can't get COVID-19. So if someone is telling you, I got symptoms, a runny nose, and whatever, I'm congested, and whatever, don't let them step in your house, okay? So, but always have plenty of hand sanitizers and make sure people are wearing their masks appropriately. It kills me to see people wearing their mask just up to their nose. It just drives me crazy, okay? And then everyone get your flu shot, please. And they have a special script flu shot for those who are over the age of 65. But you may be tacky. You may want people to bring their own food and drink, so you don't have to worry about touching them. But it's your kids, college students. A lot of times they like to come home. Some of them may like to go to a bar. Some of them might like their friends having a household party and going to go there. So if they're doing all of those things, you need to have a separate bedroom, a separate location for them in your house where you're not being exposed to them if they may be doing some little high risk behavior when they come home.
Dr. Kane, this was beautiful. Thank you so much. It reminds me, Dr. Barbara Neighbor Stevens and I were talking about the table, the little table that we were consigned to as kids. There was the grown folks table and the young folks table. So maybe we have to institute the teenagers table again. But thank you so much for your time. I know we're almost out of time.
Well, I left a slide presentation and anyone's invited to look at it for Thanksgiving tips. So just about 4 slides. But if you have an opportunity, if people have, if they can get the slides, anyone's more than welcome to look at the slides and use them.
Okay, and if you have them, we can post those on the website. If you send those to us.
I will send it to you, okay?
Very good. Is Brenda Lieger on? Michelle, is Brenda Lee on?
Yes, she is. There, she's unmuted now.
Ms. Hager, would you give us our final word?
We can't hear you, Brenda. We can't hear you. You're unmuted on this end. Maybe.
Well, she's getting it together. Yes. Someone asked me, there are at least 7 vaccines that are becoming available. Do they all work the same? No, they don't. They have different technologies that they use for the other different vaccines. And the other companies are AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. And so we don't know yet what their efficacy is because their studies are not complete.
I need you to make a promise, Dr. Kane. Will you come back?
I'd be honored. Thank you so much.
Very good.
While Brenda pulls it together, I'd like to read the affirmation.
Go ahead.
In times of crisis, the wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. And this is from Chadwick Boseman.
Well, thank you. Is Brenda Lee available?
Yeah, I think she's not going to be able to.
Okay. Dr. Neighbor Stevens, I appreciate you being my co-moderator, mostly lead moderator. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for our distinguished guests and speakers. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Everybody have a good, productive, and safe holiday. We'll be back next week, same time, same place.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Eat well, be well. Take care.
Hey, don't gain any pounds now, though.
I might trade some pounds. Thank you so much.
I love it. Okay. Hey,
Take
bye,
care.
Michelle, Jesse.
Bye, Dr. Clark.